スト翻訳始まるよ。
I'm excited. It's been so long since I've watched an anime or TV show about figure skating. Okay, I don't know Japanese that well. I do need subtitles. Let's start over. Those were real jumps. Girls don't wear black skates like that very often, though. Okay, first pause. I'm gonna pause it a lot. Tell me why that opening sequence made me emotional, because it feels like a direct look into my life when I was just watching skating and wanting to do it without knowing the cost, because figure skating is extremely expensive and very, very difficult to get into. So to see them say that in the first minute of the show and show it in a way where it's like you have this dream, even though it's expensive, is already getting to me. Oh. Ow. One time, my skating friend, that happened to her, except the blade hit her shoulder and she had to get like 20 stitches. That does happen. Look where you're going. Coaching job? Wow, you look so scary. Oh. Better catch her. So why were you hiding in the lockers? Skating is extremely expensive, but I've never seen a rink do that, unfortunately. I think I know where this is going. The shelf life of figure skating is incredibly short, and there is a general known amongst figure skaters that you gotta start like 3, 4, 5, and anything later than that is late. So she's doing that because not because they can't afford it, but because her mom doesn't support her. And unfortunately happens a lot. I was very blessed to have parents who were very supportive of me, but not everyone's like that. Skating's a hard thing to do. So he was an ice dancer? I like it when they bring up ice dance. That doesn't happen very often in movies. Yeah. 26 is also very, very old for skating. I'm only 28. I gave up at 23. So he's gonna be her coach. Oh. It's a real fear. And that can happen. So this is very realistic. So a couple things. First of all, there can be a lot of career-ending injuries that you can be totally fine one day and the next you're done. Like ankle injuries, knee injuries. If you land on your ankle just wrong at any given time, it can be literally the end of everything. So usually when that happens too, if it's especially when someone is still fairly young, so that their parent is still very much in charge of their skating, the parent can be very nervous to have another kid try to skate. And on top of that, I do see this age thing coming up very often, so that is very realistic. Skating is known, kind of like gymnastics, to be a very short shelf life sport, where if you want to be competitive at like the senior level, so that's the level you see on TV at the Olympics, at Worlds, at Nationals, usually the age range of those skaters is around 15 to 18 is kind of considered to be the sweet spot. But then you'll start to see some like 19, 20, 21-year-olds. Right now, we actually have our reigning 3-time world champion from Japan, Kare Sakamoto, who I believe is 24. And it's such a nice refresh because the sport is very much changing and starting to work its way towards a longer shelf life. We have Amber Glenn right now, who is 24 or 23, and even like the ones who are considered youngsters are more like 19 instead of like 14, and that is partially because Russia is currently not competing. They're barred from competing because of the war, and it's usually kind of them who dominate in the like 14 to 15 age range because they just pump out the skaters like they're machines, but also because the ISU, the International Skating Union, has started to change the age limit. Well, it's been like 15 for decades. That's how old you need to be to compete at the senior level at the Olympics. They're changing it so that by the Olympics next year in 2026, the minimum age is actually 18, which I very much agree with. So we're trying to work through this issue here, and that is that you have this like ticking time bomb for every single skater that ever skates, which is why they push for skaters to start when they're 3, when they're 4, when they're 5, because the younger you start, the more likely you are to be successful. But if you start when you're 13, 14, or in this case even 11, it is a very real thing for a coach or a parent to say you're too old, that there's not enough time, that you're not going to be successful, so just give it up. So this is very, very true, and it's a very real thing. I started when I was 6, which is on the very high end of technically young enough, but then I had a lot of stuff happen to me throughout my time skating where I just got set back. So it got to the point where I was 23, I wasn't anywhere near the senior level, and I had a lot of chronic hip, knee, and ankle pain. No injuries, but just pain in general. And I kind of had to just say, I think this is it. So I tried switching to solo dance. That was super expensive, and then it kind of just fizzled out. I might still get back into competing, but we'll see. There are exceptions. Johnny Weir was a very successful skater who started when he was like 11 or 12. So it can happen. Parents are usually the ones that are worried. The coaches are always trying to still kind of push them into skating. Coaching is somewhat a sales position. Extremely. You throw a lot of money into it, so everyone hopes for success because it's thousands of dollars a week if you're good. It's making me want to get back on the ice. No, don't make her wear a helmet. She's way too good for that. Helmets should only be worn by really ages 3 to 6 and when they first start and can barely move. She has a lot of talent. That was all very real elements too, that you teach very young. I mean, I'm sure she's been skating for a while to know all this. Having no fear of falling is a special thing to have in skating. If you're scared of falling, it's tough to overcome. Yep. A lot of our elements have to do with that edge specifically, whether you're on an inside or outside. Not a good suggestion because you actually want to keep your weight a little bit forward. Takes a lot of time. Dang. Put a lot of money into it. You don't want to do it again. When it can happen, it can end just as easily. Yes, I'm tearing up.
お母さん、もうさっさとやらせましょう。
Something that every figure skater understands is the desire to just skate. It's making me want to get on the ice right now. He also has a point. Someone to believe in you. She looks way too young to be 11, by the way. I called it. She has the things that it is required. Okay then. She's scared now. Oh boy. I have a lot of thoughts. I'm trying to hold them until I can gather them. Off to skating. Goodbye, Nesco. Oh, that's so cute. I have quite a few thoughts. So I tried to not pause it a whole lot because I wanted to talk about literally everything they talked about because I'm just so excited to be watching a show where it feels like already the skating in it is very realistic. I also don't know why I'm getting emotional, but let's start from the beginning. So as I kind of already talked about, skating is widely perceived as a sport that has a short shelf life, and in all intents and purposes, it does. There's very few skaters that can go past like 30 years old. Maybe in ice stands, we see a lot of skaters who are in their 30s, and there is one pair skater who's like 40, and it's just absolutely amazing, but it wasn't always like that. This is a very new revelation of being able to take care of your body so that you can last longer and that you can continue to skate in a sport that is so widely perceived as a sport that's for like 15-year-olds, right? I already talked about the age thing and I still stand by that. I think that we as a sport are moving forward properly to get to the point where we won't be doing this anymore, and I think the International Skating Union is actually making those steps by changing the age limits and that sort of thing, and also just not having Russian skaters that are out there skating quad jumps when they're 15. There's very good things about making that not a thing, because these skaters that were winning the Olympics at 15, 16 would then be retiring shortly after because they'd be putting their bodies through so much just to get that Olympic glory once, only to be never heard from again, to have back injuries that leave them literally unable to move normally for the rest of their life. So we're working towards having a healthier system within the sport so that situations like this won't happen anymore. But she also has all the things that are needed. So she has this talent. She obviously has been skating on her own for a while. You can't just do that if you haven't been skating. So that could be unrealistic if she hasn't been skating for that long. However, usually when you're 11, you can kind of catch on a little bit faster as well. When you start super young, it does take longer to get through it. There's a game that needs to be played. The older you get, the faster you catch on. However, it still is perceived as likely that you're gonna just be behind the clock the entire time. But she's got that talent, it seems. Being unafraid of falling is incredibly important. For me, I developed a fear of falling when I was about 12, 13, which was about 6 years after I started, and I was doing like double jumps that were pretty difficult, and I started developing this fear that I never actually was able to get over. My coach at the time didn't really know how to handle it, and it stuck with me all the way until I pretty much stopped skating, which caused some really bad habits, one being popping. which is when you go into a jump and you end up popping out of it before you get your full rotations in, which is a very bad habit that's going to cost you a lot of points because a double jump is worth more points than a single jump. So that is a big important factor. You have to have a level of fearlessness to be a figure skater, and if you can't get over that fear when it develops, it can be very difficult to get past it, and I never made it. Like, I never made it anywhere past regionals, so that is very telling. She also seems to listen well. That's another thing. You can have talent, but if you don't work hard and listen to your coach, you're also not going to make it very far in the sport because talent is only going to get you so far. You are going to get to a point where you have to work very, very hard, no matter your talent level, to be able to make it. So for someone to have the talent, but also listen well, have the passion, the work ethic, she seems like the perfect skater. And that's why I think he was so excited to just start coaching her, even though he was just a minute ago saying, I don't want to coach. Outside of that, a couple things that I enjoyed. They brought up ice dancing. It seems like the main guy, the coach now, I can't remember his name, Tsukasa, he did ice dance, which I really like it when we bring in a discipline of our sport that doesn't get mentioned very often. And it kind of sounds like he did it because he was older when he started. And again, that's very realistic. I tried solo ice dance because I was just getting to that age where I felt like I wasn't going to continue to progress with the jumps. So I tried solo ice dance and I was very good at it. I just at the time couldn't afford it, so I had to stop. I might get back into it. Who knows? We'll see. This is giving me a lot of desire to get back into skating, to be completely honest. But overall, I give this episode a 10 out of 10 in realism. There was really not anything that I saw where I was like, this person didn't do their research, down to the way he taught her. He said something that I disagreed with her like putting her head back like this. That'll make your entire body weight go back and you will fall. So to see that she tried that and then fell, I was like, that's really realistic too. You definitely tend to keep your weight a little bit farther forward. When you're going forward, you want to keep it centralized. When you're going backwards, you actually want to keep it farther forward. Weird how science works. So it was interesting to see him, but everything else he taught her was very true. And all of the elements she did, swizzle, that's a real thing. A T-stop, very real thing. Stroking that he was trying to teach her where you extend instead of just kind of push forward, very real thing. All very real things. So it made me a little emotional because her little thing about how much she loves it, just, I've always loved skating and it's always been a part of me. So, okay. Well, anyway, that is The Medalist episode 1. I loved it. I am very excited to watch it. And I'm probably going to get emotional in every single episode because figure skating's just been such a big part of my life for so long. Since I was 6 years old, to see it depicted well is amazing.
それでは今日出てきた英単語を振り返ってみましょう。
Shelf life.
この単語は主に食品や製品が劣化せずに品質を保つことができる期間、つまり保存期間や賞味期限を意味します。しかし、比喩的に選手生命などのある状況や役割における活動期間を指す際にも使用されます。こちらがその英単語を使った例文です。
The shelf life of this yogurt is 2 weeks.
このヨーグルトの保存期間は2週間です。
Many professional athletes have a relatively short shelf life due to the physical demands of their sports.
多くのプロアスリートは、そのスポーツの身体的要求のために比較的短い選手生命を持っています。多くのスポーツで選手生命が伸びがちになっているみたいですが、フィギュアスケートにおいてもその傾向にあるみたいですね。ただ、それでもフィギュアスケートの世界は相当に過酷みたいですね。
Blessed.
この単語は、幸運や恵みを受けた、または神の祝福を受けた状態を意味します。感謝の気持ちや特別な恩恵を表現する際に使われます。こちらがその英単語を使った例文です。
She feels blessed to have such a loving family.
彼女はこんなに愛情深い家族がいて恵まれていると感じている。
They consider themselves blessed with good health.
彼らは健康に恵まれていることを感謝している。スポーツをやる際に親が協力的だと非常に恵まれていると言えますよね。特に子供だと親にほとんど決定権があるのが辛いところですよね。大人になったら親に反抗しちゃうかもしれませんね。
Injury.
この単語は体の一部が損傷を受けること、つまり怪我を意味します。 スポーツ、事故、暴力などによる身体的な損傷を指します。こちらがその英単語を使った例文です。
He suffered a knee injury during the game.
彼は試合中に膝を怪我した。
The car accident resulted in several injuries.
その自動車事故は複数の怪我をもたらした。フィギュアスケートでもスケート靴のブレードが当たって怪我をしてしまうことがあるらしいですね。昔何かの映画でスケート靴で首を切断するという離れ技をやっていたのを見たことがあります。
Competitive.
この単語は競争力のある、または競争が激しいことを意味します。ビジネスやスポーツなど様々な場面で競争の激しさを表現する際に使われます。こちらがその英単語を使った例文です。
She has a highly competitive nature and always strives to win.
彼女は非常に競争心が強く、常に勝利を目指している。
The job market is very competitive these days.
最近の就職市場は非常に競争が激しい。ちなみに日本ではフードファイターという職業の人がいますが、あの人たちは確か英語ではコンペティティブイーターと呼ばれていたと思います。あの業界もなんだかんだで過酷ですよね。
Chronic.
この単語は病気や症状が長期にわたって続くこと、または再発を繰り返すことを意味します。医学の文脈でよく使われ、慢性の病気や痛みを指します。急性とは対照的に使用されます。こちらがその英単語を使った例文です。
He suffers from chronic back pain.
彼は慢性的な背中の痛みに苦しんでいる。
Chronic stress can have serious health consequences.
慢性的なストレスは深刻な健康問題を引き起こすことがある。フィギュアスケート選手は過酷な練習から体に慢性的な痛みが出てくるという話がありましたね。確かプルシェンコさんも体中のいろんなところにボルトが入っているという話を聞いたことがあります。すごい話ですよね。
Afford.
この単語は経済的に余裕がある、または物理的時間的に何かを行う余裕があることを意味します。特に購入や支出に関連する文脈で使われます。こちらがその英単語を使った例文です。
They can't afford to buy a new car right now.
彼らは今すぐに新しい車を買う余裕がない。
Can you afford to take a week off work?
仕事を1週間休む余裕がありますか？フィギュアスケートはお金のかかる競技なので、金銭的な理由で継続できなくなるという話は私も聞いたことがあります。華やかに見えるけど、裏では大変な労力が伴っているという点では白鳥のようでもありますね。
Overcome.
この単語は困難や障害を克服することを意味します。個人的な挑戦や困難な状況に対して成功や勝利を収める際に使われます。精神的な強さや努力を強調する言葉です。こちらがその英単語を使った例文です。
She overcame her fear of public speaking.
彼女は人前で話すことへの恐怖を克服した。
They overcame many obstacles to achieve their goal.
彼らは目標を達成するために多くの障害を乗り越えた。フィギュアスケートをするにあたって、ジャンプをする際に転ぶ時の恐怖を克服することが大事だという話がありましたね。ちなみに空手では殴られる時の恐怖を克服しないといけません。どのスポーツでも何かしらの恐怖を克服しないといけないのかもしれませんね。
Talent.
この単語は特定の分野での優れた能力や才能を意味します。芸術、スポーツ、科学など多様な分野での才能を指します。自然に備わっている才能や後天的に磨かれたスキルに対して使われます。こちらがその英単語を使った例文です。
She has a natural talent for painting.
彼女は絵を描く自然な才能がある。
The company is looking for new talent to join their team.
その会社は新たな才能をチームに加えるために探している。日本語でタレントというと、いろんなテレビ番組に出ている芸能人のことを指しますが、もともとは才能という意味の英単語です。あの人たちに才能があるのかどうかですって？まあ、ある人もいれば、ない人もいるでしょう。